perception of rap seems to be one of violence and aggression, certainly weakening the bowels of any middle-class white teen such as myself. However, Bubba Brinkman seems to take a new form of rap. Using his master's degree in English and also his passion for science, he's developed a new way of teaching young people about science. Whether that be for their own passions or if they just need to pass a test, Bubba Brinkman certainly has created a means for learning science. I hope you enjoy the interview with Bubba Brinkman.
There was a time I thought I was going to be a marine biologist. As an undergrad, I was taking some biology courses and some English courses, and around that time I also decided that I was going to be a rapper. And to me, studying poetry and literature felt more relevant to the craft of being a rapper. I wanted to be able to assimilate the styles of Shakespeare and Chaucer and the old poets. That's part of the reason I focused on literature. But I was always interested in science. The show is the Rap Guide to Evolution. It's a tour of evolutionary biology, and it's really not about evolution versus creationism. It's more about why evolution is inspiring and interesting on its own. And I feel like you'd probably be more effective trying to entice people and seduce them by showing why evolution is interesting, rather than by telling them why their religion is wrong or whatever. And so I was very keen on the idea of evolution. I think I actually even argued in my master's thesis that Chaucer anticipates Darwin's theory of evolution in the Canterbury Tales, and that Canterbury Tales is sort of like a poetry competition that allows for literature to evolve through the dynamics of natural selection. I was trying to bring science in, but I was still officially in the English department, and I was a humanities guy. So it was sort of almost a weight off my shoulders when I got to do this, because I've always been keen on science but haven't really had a way to interact with it. I wanted to explore the concept of evolution and why it's accurate and what it can explain. And then as I was doing the research, how can you really justify that evolution is true and creationism is not? Only with the scientific method. And so only by going in carefully to the literature on evolution was I able to construct the sort of arguments and ideas presented in the show. And then at a certain point, it wasn't even my intention to really be a science communicator. I just wanted to help people understand evolution. If you asked me to be a physics communicator, I'd kind of be dead in the water. I have to do it subject by subject. I don't really have a broad knowledge of science, but I have a decent knowledge of evolutionary biology and evolutionary psychology, and those to me seemed like a good place to start when it came to science communicating via the arts, because evolutionary biology is about the arts in a way, because there are very good theories and hypotheses about where the arts come from evolutionarily, and I talk about some of them in the show. And if I did a show about rapping physics for the audience, it would be hard for me to make physics relevant to their everyday behaviors. But when I do the Rap Guide to Evolution, I can say, when you feel that way, well, that's evolution, and when you behave that way, that's evolution, and then it really becomes personal. So I just love figuring things out. It's like the pleasure of finding things out, and when disparate parts that hadn't previously made sense to you suddenly connect, and you go, oh, that's why that. For some people, that's inherently pleasurable, and there's actually evolutionary theories about why that's the case, that our minds would have been adapted to have a pleasure response to the sort of solving of seemingly unconnected information, because when you make that link in nature, sometimes that link is about avoiding a predator or finding food or working out the politics of a clan. That can apply to the natural world as well, and I think people have been doing that for millions of years. But I don't think everybody necessarily has the same degree of intellectual curiosity, which is why for some people the connections to behavior in everyday life are a really important part of the puzzle. Because if you can say, the reason you're attracted to this kind of person more than that kind of person, or the reason you eat this kind of food, or the reason, the things that you do in your interactions with your friends, or in the show just there was some unruly audience members, and I linked their behavior to evolutionary dynamics, and that is a way to make the interest and the relevance slightly inescapable. It's harder to say, I just don't care about that subject, but when you can say, well, what do you care about? And if they say something, you can say, well, that's actually the same subject. You know what I mean? Yeah, I think science literacy is an important thing for everyone to have access to. And I think there's opportunities and paths that open up. just technology jobs are exploding just for the basics, and biotech and genetics and communications technology, and all of that is science-based. So a scientifically illiterate population is one that's actually just like lacking a great deal of opportunity that they ought to have access to. And sometimes you only gain that literacy by having the seeds of interest planted when you're young. So I mean, I was lucky that I had some pretty good teachers that made the subjects interesting to me. But I have a lot of people who come to my show say, oh man, if evolution was taught like that in school, maybe I wouldn't have dropped it. And that's part of what I'm doing, is trying to reach people who will then take the ideas from the show and have them, use that as the fuel for making a decision that leads them towards greater science literacy instead of away from it. It's not enough to just make people laugh or smile or just have a nice time and then leave with a completely blank mind. I'm an ideas-based entertainer. When I first started out doing like science and literature themed rap, it was a bit of a long shot that there would be even the possible market for such a thing, because there's really hardly anything out there like that. So it's sort of like being a pioneer species, like the first spider to land on a volcanic island that's just been decimated, and you're like, well, is anything going to grow here? I guess we'll find out. But it's been really gratifying to get the response that I've gotten and to be able to make a living from it. The scientific revolution has changed the world, hasn't it? Everything around us is scientifically informed. The architecture around us and the engineering and the technology is everywhere. And also just there's a great deal of it that's philosophical as well, like our place in the universe is better understood. How small we are, the scale of it, how old the Earth is, and the knowledge has been accumulated little by little over the last few hundred years to the point where we have a pretty good picture of where we come from, what the purpose of it all is. May not be the purpose we wish it was. I think science doesn't always give us the answers we want, but I think it's more useful to have the right answers. And then when you perform a show called The Rap Guide to Evolution, inevitably people come up to you afterwards and they go, what else are you going to do a rap guide to? So over the past few years, I've done a rap guide to business and a rap guide to human nature, which is about psychology. And I'm working on a rap guide to wilderness right now, which is going to be about ecology and conservation. And I'm also working on a rap guide to religion, which is going to be about the history of world religions and the evolutionary benefit that they convey, if any. So I think there's going to be a series of rap guides, and they'll be like, informative and entertaining albums. Some of them will be shows, some of them will just be records. But I want to just keep working on that collection as long as there's an audience and a market for it, and as long as people are hungry for knowledge delivered in a fun way.
Natural selection. Go ahead and ask a question and see where the answer gets you. Try being passive aggressive or try smashing heads in and see which tactic brings your plans to fruition. And if you have an explanation in mind, then you're wasting your time, because the best one.
Well, I hope you enjoyed our interview with Baba Brinkman.
Impatient mind to explain away nature with intelligent design. But the truth shall set you free from those superstitious beliefs in a literal Adam and Eve and that Edenic myth, because their family tree is showing some genetic drift.